The most powerful forces on the planet are none of which we can see with 3D vision, and these are the very forces that we are run by. They are our fuel, our demise, our greatest medicine, and our purpose for living. We cannot see the breath. We cannot see love or resentment, emotional pain. None of these can we see visibly. We cannot see God. The breath is the kiss of God. The breath is what animates life, and the breath of God is what gives us life force and prana. The breath has the ability to control and alter our state of consciousness and to purify. There is no transformation or changing consciousness without a change of breath. Our breath determines our health and our ability to create. There was a man who could determine the personality of a baby by their first breath out of the womb, and I'm going to share information with you about that today. Before the womb, we are in a perfect state of homeostasis with God, a balance of the left and right brain. Once we experience our first significant trauma coming out of the womb, we are no longer in that state. We accumulate trauma throughout our life, taking our breath even farther away from God, which takes us farther away from our destined path. But you have the ability to take yourself back to God through the breath. You can also dissolve the patterns of karma and repeating cycles through the breath. I myself have healed many past life wounds and generational trauma through the breath. What I also want to share with you today was some paperwork I came across from about 10 years ago when I was in school for medicine. I was going for naturopathic position, the pre-med type sciences and holistic medicine courses as well. There are 2 to 3 pages of articles about the breath and CSF and the etheric matrix, as well as childbirth. All of this checked out then and is only more complimenting to come back now, having gone much further down the path of medicine and the spirit. In fact, I already recorded this video a while back, and so much of what I talked about was also in these articles before I reread them. And there is a lot of great information about the universal breath and regeneration packed in 3 pages. There are 2 things I want to talk about before I begin reading, and that is about trauma and ADHD. Trauma has a starting point. The deeper the impact of the trauma, the deeper the programming. Everything is recorded. Our body, our nervous system, our energetic body, we have crystals inside of us. Everything is recorded. We also have muscle memory. If you were to work out for years or you were really athletic, you had a really solid foundation in muscle, and you quit working out for 8 years and you started working out again, that muscle is going to gain back really fast from muscle memory. In a sense, this is similar to trauma because you can have not experienced something for a really long time, for that, let's say that 8-year period. You may have completely forgotten about it, or you maybe never knew about it, and someone or something comes into your life and triggers that in you, and you have no idea why you are experiencing what you are experiencing. And these things can come up from previous lifetimes. I do a lot of work with the womb. A lot of these things we have also picked up while in the womb, but from ages 0 to 7, we are in a state that is somewhat like a dream state. a very subconscious type state where we are being heavily programmed. We are not in control of what is being programmed to us, through us, in us between ages 0 to 7. And we are hardly aware of what that is. This is why inner child healing is such a big part of shadow work as well. The things that we cannot see and maybe we're never aware of, but all trauma has a root, and this is what I consider a reference point. So I knew someone who was in a car accident, and every time I ran into this person or met this person, they always, in every conversation or every meeting, happened to bring up this accident that they had 5 years prior. They were not aware they were doing this and that they noticed this. I've done this too. We've all done this. I'm only using this as an example, but this was a significant trauma. This, they had to have surgery. This was physically and psychologically traumatizing. This altered their life in many, many ways. This is why I'm using this, because it is very obvious and significant, something that drastic. But they always use this accident as a point of reference. Even though they were healed, they were, they were experiencing addiction because of this. They didn't need to take stuff anymore, but they still did for the pain. That's because there was still underlying trauma based on the impact of that event. It was not still affecting their life in that way or their physical body. They were able to work out and do everything. So there are less significant traumas that we experience that we are always, that point of reference is what we are making decisions based off of. There are other things like somebody that we love passed, or we were cheated on or something like that, right? Those are going to be more obvious. But what about the really minor ones and the emotional things that have impacted us emotionally that we have forgotten about, that we may not have thought were even important? We may not have realized that it did make an imprint on us. And these are patterns that are formed. It is like a webbing around us, or when people have cast judgments or hurt us, with their words, right? Things like this that, they impact and make little imprints and dents and tighten the breath up. This is restricting to the breath. And we accumulate these traumas throughout our life. When you are wanting to get to the root of trauma, the very, very root of this life, you will want to begin in the womb, or coming out of the womb is what I meant for the most part. Of course, there are cases of other things happening, but for the most part, we experience our first real big trauma coming out of the womb. And so does the mother. And this is something that we want to go back to and heal from. In balance, the animals have a balance of the left and right brain. They do not have to think about what they are going to do next, if they'll find food, what's going to happen. The animals just are. We, of course, have more things to think about, but when we remove all these patterns off of our heart and our nervous system and our body, our energy system, when we are removing these patterns, we are removing karma and healing the trauma. And this allows our heart to expand. It allows our spirit to expand, our essence of life. We are able to move more freely when we do not have all of these restricting us. As soon as we start thinking, this actually slows the breath down. It actually takes us, out of alignment once we begin thinking too much instead of just being. We start thinking about the past or the future or anything. So we want to remember the point of reference. And the second thing I want to discuss is ADHD. Attention dialed into higher dimensions. Many ADHD and gifted rainbow children, you can call it what you want, but it is highly attuned to the spiritual. It's more angelic in nature. The higher planes, the higher chakra systems than the lower chakra systems. It is very difficult for those with ADHD to feel grounded, to feel like they belong. It can be painful to try to fit in with the earthly systems. Nature feels great being out in nature, but it can be very difficult to human and to be in your body. Many are at a higher frequency, like a faster frequency. So what happens when ADHD people and children take medication or even, caffeine or coffee or anything like that, they think that that it makes them feel normal. They think that it is normal because their heart rate has now sped up, and they think that they're aligning to what feels normal to them. But that's actually false, because it is actually taking you out of alignment from your heart, because your heart rate is to be at the rate of homeostasis. It is to be in alignment with Mother Earth and the Earth grid. So those who deal with a lot of anxiety, you're in the future, you're ahead of your time, you're always somewhere else other than now in the present moment. And the present moment is in the heart and in the root chakra. It's grounded right here into earth. So medication can deceive you into thinking that, I feel normal when I take it, because it's speeding you up to that higher frequency temporarily, but it's actually doing so much more damage. So when you have ADHD and, you will want to ground and become present with Mother Earth, you want to be human. While you're here, you may feel very alien when you are ADHD. And when you ground into your body and connect to Earth, then this will regulate your breath. This will make you present and able to focus. When your heart rate is, going really fast, it is not at its resting rate. It is not where it needs to be. And as long as you are taking things that make you go faster, physically, your body, not just your mind, as long as you are taking things that keep you going there, you're never going to feel comfortable in your body or where you are. So you can absolutely use breath work for grounding. Practicing breath work is a process of transmutation. It is changing what is and what was your state of consciousness, the way you feel, your spirit. It is purifying the blood. It is changing what you are in one state to another, and it is a process of release. And the thing about release and karma and healing and breath work is what is meant to come up is what comes up. You want to trust that what comes up, or that, what is meant to be healed does come up when it is meant to. And you can think like this when it comes to the people that come into your life as well as the experiences. We also cannot force who comes into our life and when. This means that every person and every opportunity that comes into our life is also showing us our ability to be free. It is showing you where you are imprisoned. Every person is giving you the opportunity to release karma and to transmute. So when we wonder why this is happening, how did I end up here? Who is this person? Why did they end up hurting me? When in breath work, random things will come up, things that you completely forgot about. It could honestly be in other lives. Random things from your childhood. This is what happens when we run into people. It is another thing to consider with the point of reference is sometimes you do not get the things you think you want because you are basing it off that point of reference. So have you ever met anyone that you were like, oh my God, this person is made for me? And then you come to find out it ended up bringing deep trauma within you and was just tumultuous in some way or another. The things that it brought up because you were basing your idea of what was perfect for you off the point of reference of when something actually occurred when you were 9 or, in another life or, 2 years old even. We do not control what comes up or, what is meant to come up comes up organically. It is the same with the people that come into our life. So the more that we are present and the more that we are grounded in the now, the more we are able to trust where we are and who is around us and what is around us. And that we do not need to control what that is. Because we are nature. We are part of nature. And it happens organically. People think that they are trying to escape the matrix when really they are trying to escape karma. Before I begin reading, I have something else I want to mention about muscle memory. Just as, old things can come up and suddenly be restored or, trigger us that we did not realize because, it was so far behind us. The same goes with gifts. You have carried gifts with you, not just trauma, an experience from other lifetimes, and you will go through experiences and meet people and, have transformation within that's blocking you from these gifts. When you release this karma, your gifts will be the muscle memory, your abilities. It is really powerful. The more karma you release, the more patterns you release, these traumas that are released allows these to come to the surface like muscle memory. But remember that sometimes it is one day, you go to a location or run into someone or hear something or have an experience or have a major life, changing loss or something that's going to bring that out of you. It is part of the path and the blueprint that you are walking on. You must also trust the timing of when these come in as well. There are many who will say, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. Or you may feel that there's something inside of you, but everything gets unlocked when it is meant to. The more trauma that is released, however, the more these things are able to breathe and come to surface and come to light when your heart is able to expand. These articles I received from a professor in a holistic medicine course, and the first article I'm going to read is from a book called The Baby's Cry by Truby, published in 1978. Truby got his PhD research work on the baby's cry in Stockholm, Sweden. A study of 15,000 sound and spectrographic analysis, he recorded the moment of a child's first cry and followed up with studies through the first 7 years of development. So he got a pattern of the growth and development of the personality of the child. From the first breath or baby's cry, he could determine the personality of the child, its weaknesses, and the degree of health and well-being. The mouth breather presents several problems. Perhaps the most common situation is that most people jam their breath as soon as they are stressed. The slightest trauma, psychological or physical, causes an activation of the solar plexus, which produces an emotional stimuli in the holding of the breath. Perhaps more than any other factor, this causes a shock to have a traumatic effect. When it jams our breath, devitalizes us, or weakens our life energy at a moment when we need it most. The trauma leads to our present patterns of abnormal behavior that gets into the body and has its effect. Thus, the more our breath is freed up, the less the effect of the trauma. Strangely, many actually turn against their breathing. Breathing itself has become an unnatural act for them, a stress, a chore, basic to all work on anyone's physical body. We must teach them to like breathing. Then they will relax. There will be ease and peace. Then at last they can appreciate, like, and value their most vital function, breathing. There is an interplay between the etheric matrix and the gases, liquids, and solids of the physical body. There is constant balance between the vital regenerative forces of the etheric matrix and the degenerating and decaying forces of the physical body and the environment. A physical body is and has its essential form in the bony structure. A bioenergetic field exists around the body, maintaining the balance and total functioning of the physical form. If we become attached to a thought process which has a high emotional content, that thought pattern will be locked into the bioenergetic field which surrounds the physical body. The physical body will manifest itself in a distortion pattern, slumping of the shoulders, shortening of the leg, twisting of the body, a pulling of the muscles of the eye or mouth. If continued for an extended period of time, these patterns will become chronic and locked into the body form. Has anyone here had one side of the body, that is really tight, or one leg that is shorter than the other, or your face, maybe it is asymmetrical, it is uneven in some way or another? This is what this is referring to. If we become attached to a thought process which has a high emotional content, that thought pattern will be locked into the bioenergetic field which surrounds the physical body. These are the patterns that keep one imprisoned. I have removed these from organs, from muscles, in many forms. They are like a webbing, like a spider web. The significant point is that all awareness and behavior is derived primarily from very limited perception. We do so much harm to our emotional and physical bodies from the lack of forgiving. We must learn to love ourselves, for in the act of loving, we fill the energetic field that we need to maintain life. When you can love without constraint, you maintain a balance of force that keeps your mind and body and spirit functioning and moving in a direction for growth and development. To heal is to bring an individual to a state of wholeness and well-being. This is accomplished with breath and love. The second article is called Breath by Robert Fulford, D.O. Man breathes throughout his life. One cycle of digestion of food takes 24 hours. One cycle of respiration or digestion of air takes 3 seconds. During the course of a day, one breathes about 28,000 times. If one observes closely, they will find that every breath brings a new thought to mind, or a new turn of repetition to an old thought. The most obvious and the most vital function of our psychosomatic organism is the function of breathing. How vital and basic it is, we can gauge from the fact that we can live without food for a number of weeks, without drink for a few days, but without air hardly a few moments. We can relinquish even consciousness as in deep sleep or under narcosis or in state of catalepsy, but we cannot relinquish breathing as long as we are alive. Breathing, therefore, is the most subtle form of our organism, a function that can be both conscious and unconscious, volitional and non-volitional. This in contrast to most of our other functions, such as the beating of the heart, the circulation of the blood, the currents of nerve energy, the function of digestion, assimilation, and secretion, etc. Breathing is the only vital function in which, spite of its independence from our normal consciousness and its self-regulating and self-perpetuating subconscious function, is accessible to the mind. Due to this double nature, breathing can be made the mediator between the body and mind, or the mean of our conscious participation in the most vital and universal functions of our psychosomatic organism. Thus, the conscious control of the breath affects the electrical polarity of the brain and our biophysical luminescence. Breathing becomes the first step towards the transformation of the body from a state of a more or less passively, unconsciously functioning physical organism into a vehicle or tool of a perfectly developed and enlightened individual, represented by the radiance and perfection of the body. The fact that all the major functions of the body have become automatic, example, self-regulating, unconscious, and beyond the interference of willpower or intellect, with the exception of breathing, is an achievement of our biological evolution or the super individual power of our depth consciousness. Through breathing, we achieve the synthesis of all our functions and realize the dynamic and universal nature of life. Breathing enlivens and vitalizes the physical body with life energy, and also balances the flow of life energies within the body. The primary conductor for the life energy in our body is the cerebral spinal fluid. The CSF is agonized with breathing exercises. The CSF is generally believed to be produced by the choroid plexuses located in the ventricles of the brain. The CSF circulates around the brain with the spinal column and nerve fibers. The pumping action which circulates the CSF is created by the cranial bones in the skull in conjunction with our breathing. I did not realize it has been a very long time. I think this is actually a third article. I thought there was two. I think this is a separate one, not part of the second one. Life energy, which sustains our physical being, is a subtle energy that exists at a higher nutational rate than physical vibration. In esoteric teachings, life energy is generally referred to as Kundalini energy. I quote from the Philosophy of Osteopathy by A.T. Still: "The results obtained are not satisfactory, and another leaf is open of why no results are obtained, and where is the mystery, what quality, an element of force and vitality has been withheld." A thought strikes him that the CSF fluid is highest known element that is contained in the human body, and unless this fluid is furnished in abundance, a disabled condition of the body will remain. He who is able to reason will see that the great river of life must be tapped and the withering field irrigated at once, or the harvest of health will be forever lost. So breathing, both conscious and unconscious, become a vital factor in the flow of CSF that carries the life energy. A balanced breath is a must for a long, interesting, healthful, and youthful life. Through the breath, the body and the nervous system receive life-giving oxygen, but it also receives life-giving ether prana universal life as well. Unbalanced breathing disturbs the sleep pattern. Unequal length of breath cycles have a very negative effect upon the mind, brain, nerves, and body. The unequal length of the cycle caused the unfortunate victim to seek various ways of quieting his screaming nerves, overcome his excessive irritability, or eliminate his fears, timidity, and bashfulness. Recent research has shown there is a nasal rhythm, which is one of the body rhythms. The nasal rhythm reflects hemisphere activity in the brain. The right nostril dominance goes with the left hemisphere of the brain. The left nostril dominance goes with the right hemisphere of the brain. The breathing must be done through the nostrils and not the mouth. The air must contact the olfactory nerves. If it doesn't, you are only half alive. When the physical body has been stressed and one feels fatigued, a deep breath inhales through the nostrils, held for a number of seconds, and suddenly expelled through the nostrils will usually strip the unwanted charges from the body and bring the body to a state of balance and well-being. When you think an energy emerges from the body, that energy has a distinct, precise pattern to it. That energy is controlled by the breath. As a man breathes, so is he. The science of breath is vital to every individual. Through breath, we move through the various levels of consciousness to which we manifest these energies in space. When the life energy is jammed, the breath cannot flow through the body. This problem is in part the result of the psychological and physical trauma people have suffered, including the emotional element in which they grew up. Yet the basic problem relates to birth. As LeBoyer recommends, the umbilical cord is kept pulsating so there is a gradual change over from the oxygenated blood, and if the baby is now lying peacefully on the mother, the baby's breath will expand all the skull bones and all the bones of the body. The baby's body has been put in a certain compact form for the delivery, and after birth it has, in a sense, to be reassembled. This is done with the breath. After a gentle birth, there will be a complete expansion of the body throughout. Unfortunately, in most people, this does not happen, and the body never fully expands from birth. Thus, it is predisposed to misusage and ultimate imbalance, distortion, and spiraling effects. Nadi Shodan Pranayama, this is the alternate nostril breathing. This is what you will want to do to come into equilibrium, into the present moment.